Hi, everybody. If you've okay,
You farted. You farted.
I farted. It's fine. Good evening, and welcome to the Never Heard of It podcast. I am your host, Craig Moorhead, but I'm not your only host. Your other host, former Scandinavian model / super spy.
Shawn, I resent the former Harwell.
Oh, I didn't mean that as an insult.
Well, it came across that way.
I apologize.
Oh, no problem. Thanks. How you doing, Craig?
I'm all right, Shawn. How are you?
I'm great. I'm happy to be here talking about movies once again from 1985. So if you're just joining us and don't know what's going on, I'd be surprised. But if you're in that category, go over to neverheardpodcast.com. It'll take you everywhere you want to go on the social media tip, and you can also find all of our back episodes and reviews and all kinds of fun stuff. And yeah, come join the party here because what are we, part 6 here into this thing? Or is this part 5?
This is going to be parts. No, This is part 6. You're right. Yes, it's part 6.
Yeah. Okay. So part 6, I was right. What do you know? And I think, it was high time for us to talk about some teen sex comedies because, as I think you mentioned in the last episode, that made up about 84% of all movies in 1985, that trope. So yeah, we're just going to talk about 2 of them today.
You know where 90% of people can find us is online, Shawn. You can find us at Twitter. You can find us at Never Podcast. Is that right? You can find us neverpodcast.com, neverheardpodcast.com. I don't know. Just look for us. Look for the podcast. It's me and Shawn. We're talking about 1985. Simple. No big whoop.
So, what would you little maniacs like to do first?
Craig, we've got Weird Science and Private Resort on tap today. What do you say we start with Weird Science?
Let's jump on it.
How about I read the synopsis for us real quick? Because if you don't know Weird Science, again, I'd be surprised. But here's what you need to know. Mm-hmm. 2 high school nerds attempt to create the perfect woman, but she turns out to be more than that. That is very, very short as far as the movie. But yeah, they do attempt to create the perfect woman, literally using a Commodore 64.
Yeah.
I don't know. That wasn't a Commodore 64. I don't know what kind of computer it was. It was a computer that used a gigantic floppy disk. If you're not old enough to know what one of those are, Beautiful. Look them up. You definitely got a phone-based modem, which, again, is rare, and just in the sense that nobody's even going to know what that half that used to be a telephone is now.
Unless you saw War Games, in which case you know what kind of mayhem can happen if you have one of those.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And that's you plug that in and you can make a woman, according to this movie. I wanted to just ask right off the bat, Craig, because we have talked briefly about this movie when we were talking Anthony Michael Hall in a different episode. And I seem to recall you saying that this was never quite your cup of Anthony Michael Hall, John Hughes tea.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. Now, we might as well start there then.
Okay.
What was it like watching this again? Did that opinion change at all, or just was it reaffirmed?
It was reaffirmed. And why? It's weird. It's weird. Of course it's weird. No.
It's also science, but go ahead.
It's also, there's a science aspect to it as well. No, but I remember watching this when I was younger. Having seen, for whatever reason, 16 Candles and Breakfast Club before I saw this.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I guess I say that because I feel like I would have seen this first because both of those are rated R. Somehow I got to both of those before I got to this, regardless.
Mm-hmm.
In both of those, in both of those, Anthony Michael Hall plays like a real nerd.
Yes.
Or geek or whatever terminology you want to use for it.
Dweeb.
But he's super dweeb. Dweeb is good.
Mm-hmm.
Super, socially awkward, little skinny guy. nothing about him is really cool. He always has a pretty forceful personality. Well, not in Breakfast Club so much. 16 Candles, he has like amongst his peers, he has a forceful personality. Like if anything's going to happen, it's going to be because of him.
Yeah.
And I feel like a little bit of that is in this movie. But then, and then Breakfast Club, not so much. And I just remember watching this one, and, you know, the first scene sets the both of them up pretty well as outcasts, dweebs, geeks, dorks, whatever you want to call them.
Nerds.
Wyatt was clearly, Wyatt was clearly the nerdier of the two.
Mm-hmm.
But in that first scene, like they seem very much on the same end of the spectrum. Like they're both there in their gym stuff. You know, Gary is just super skinny and awkward. They're talking about girls that are, you know, just way beyond their reach and in every possible dimension as far as they're concerned. They get pantsed at the end of it. Total nerds. And then I always feel like there's this thing that kind of switches back and forth over the course of the movie where, and I think it's kind of because Anthony Michael Hall is great at riffing.
Mm-hmm.
Like he could riff on stuff so easily, and a lot of times, like some really funny stuff comes out. But I kind of felt like in this movie, it felt like this was the movie where Hughes was kind of like, "Hey man, just take it and run. Every scene, just run, and we'll just see how far you can run with it." And maybe he did, and maybe a lot of that stuff ended up. But it just felt like he riffs too easily to have no rap with girls. Like. It never made sense to me. Like I just felt like he's coming off way too cool in a way. He seems to have almost no self-confidence problems. He has no, you know what I mean? Like I don't know. There was always that part of me that was just like, I don't know. He seems too cool. And then there'll be a scene like when he goes to his parents and they're talking about like, Lisa's going to take him to a party. Like that feels like, okay, Gary, now you're the underdog. Like now suddenly you can't handle this situation. But I'm kind of like, why can't you handle this situation? Like this seems like the kind of situation you would handle very easily because you just have such an easy rap. So anyway, that's one of the things that always kind of bothered me about it. Is that kind of thing never matched up. And I feel like there are other things in the movie that are kind of like that too. And you kind of you have to take it as like a lot of, I don't know, fun vignettes. And then it's like a fun movie to watch. But go ahead.
Whew.
What about you?
I'm trying to like catalog in all the ways in which you're wrong on this.
Wow.
It's getting lengthy. No. That's a really interesting interpretation because I've never even thought of sort of what you're talking about as far as the mismatch of his personality versus his social status. Yeah. Talking about Anthony Michael Hall's character. And clearly, yes, I'd say Alon Mitchell-Smith, Wyatt is the nerdier of the two, intentionally so, and comes across that way in his performance. But I still, to me, I think this, and I'd have to go and look at them all again, it feels like the most overtly broad movie that John Hughes directed. Maybe not wrote, but directed for sure, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is, it just makes me laugh. I mean, that's it. Like this to me is total comfort food. I did kind of wonder if today, I watched it this morning, maybe this will be the time where, I was just like, I got to get this in. I've seen this a dozen million times. Dozen million. Do I really need to sit down and watch this thing again? I was expecting maybe this would be the time where some of my veneer of love might start to crack. Mm-hmm. And yet it made me laugh from the word go. And that's a hard thing to like kind of qualify. Mm-hmm. It's like if it either makes you laugh or it doesn't. Sure. Maybe that's why people, there's some people who like Adam Sandler movies. There's some people who don't, but there's a lot of people in both camps, it seems like. And trying to debate that maybe has no merit. But I will say, even in the context of the 80s and the people that John Hughes surrounds Gary with, you still find him kind of cool? Because I'm with you. I feel like, and I do think maybe 16 Candles is better at like, okay, he's a loser in that movie, But here's the clique of losers, right? There's like four
Right.
of them. There's John Cusack, and he's kind of like the alpha male of that clique. Here, you don't have that. It's just the two of them, right?
Right.
And you're right. There's really very little else in the movie that could point you to someone even like that. I mean, even with all the extras they have, even just outside of that party scene at school, in the mall, you don't really see other dweebs, right?
Right. Right.
Maybe those two girls that are in the bathroom after they have their little powwow in the shower and they look out expecting to find Deb and Hilly, and then there's the two large girls.
Yeah.
They're very broadly painted
Right.
as losers. That's about it.
Yeah, well, there's actually a deleted scene where a bunch of guys show up, and actually they're in the rest of the movie, but just not dressed this way, but they show up to the party at the end dressed up as Devo. Like they arrive on these motor
That's
scooters,
fantastic.
they have the helmets on, and they come in and they're just
Love it.
dorks.
Love it.
And that's one of those things where it's just like, man, but like Anthony Michael Hall to me, and really, again, it's just because I feel like he's so quick, he's so clever.
Yes, you're
He
right.
can just, like, he's so good. It just seems like bizarre that for some reason in the world of this movie, he is ostracized. It
But
just seems weird. And really, and again, I like the movie. Like I was saying online there a little while ago, Gene Siskel, I think, is right about his review. The only thing I don't agree with him about is that he doesn't like the movie. Like,
yeah,
I think he's
can buy
right,
that.
but I still like it. But it's like even at the end, they end up with these girls, but it's kind of like, why? Like, whatever happened that made them like these two guys? Like,
I
I
will
like
say,
the guys, but it's like I don't understand like none of that, and it doesn't have to. I mean, the rest of the movie is not like a deep exploration of teenager angst. But it's just
No,
like
not at all.
But I don't feel like there's ever any real thing that happens.
No, and I think, yeah, if there was a flaw that stood out to me watching it again this time, it's kind of exactly what you're talking about. I was surprised by how quickly the plot moved watching it this time, and that the sort of the shit hitting the fan at that party where all these guys kind of come in, basically the Road Warrior characters, right? The bad guys, Vernon Wells we talked about, and take over this party more or less so that Gary and Wyatt had to stand up for themselves and become heroes. There's still a good 20 plus minutes left kind of when that scene kicks off. And now that kind of surprised me. I was like, I always kind of think of that as like the climactic moment. And it's really, I mean, it is and it isn't in some ways, because there's still the resolution with, the girls and Chet and Lisa and putting, the genie back in the bottle, sort of. But again, it's such a likable experience for me that it's hard to like look at this as a failure, on its own. In comparison to like, what I think John Hughes proved that, and it's so interesting to watch this and exactly what you're talking about with like the girls. Like, look at the female characters in the other teen movies that he made.
Yeah.
Like there's so many layers and they're amazing. And boy, they're not here. I mean, it's really, they're pretty thin in that regard. And it is a bit awkward watching Robert Downey Jr. and Robert Russler sit down with Gary and Wyatt and go, all right, here's the deal. We'll give you Deb and Hilly. You let us have Lisa. I mean, it's like, to go back to the Siskel and Ebert review, there's a lot of misogyny in this movie. But I did love Ebert's rebuttal that a lot of teenage boys are misogynistic. I mean, I think that's very, very true.
Yeah.
I don't know if that excuses it, but yeah.
Well, that's the thing. I feel like it definitely excuses at the beginning. I think you don't get into this movie unless you accept the fact that like two 14-year-old dudes are probably going to be pretty much basically misogynistic.
Yes. With a 23-year-old woman, by the way.
Right.
There's a very statutory vibe to this movie. It's like a reverse Lolita in a weird way.
Yeah.
It is. It's interesting to watch in the context of our current climate, I guess. And I still laughed. I'm not trying to not trying to walk away from that. It still makes me laugh.
I mean, hey, somehow Private Resort comes off even worse. But But yeah, I seem to have remembered something that doesn't actually happen in Weird Science, which was that there was sort of a lesson at the end of that scene of, well, we'll give you these girls if you give us your girl, and then those guys are, well, no, but we'll just make you another girl.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, yeah, women are just completely dehumanized in every possible way. And then I always thought that, for some reason, I thought that Kelly LeBrock came in at the end and she was like angry with them about it. But then she's really not. Like,
no,
she's just like, you forgot to do something.
Yeah, it's like you flew a little too close to the sun, you know?
Right.
They had to go and mess things up. You got cocky.
And I feel like that's kind of a shame. I wonder.
Timid lesson.
Yes. Well, I just wonder if anything was like lost in the cutting of it. It just seems like it's so ripe for just like, well, you know, the problem you're really having is relating to other human beings. So here, relate to some other actual human beings.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, like, you're fine people. You two boys are fine. Like, but you don't put yourself out there. You stay way back here and you talk about how those people are so much prettier than you.
Yeah.
Like, don't do that. Go be with them. Go talk to them, you know? And it seems like a lot of the movie kind of sets that moment up, but it doesn't really come in a weird way.
No, I mean, I think it's still sort of filtered through the prism of having fun first. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, it comes through the ridiculous moment of them standing up and pointing a gun at Vernon Wells, you know,
right,
and that kind of thing, which is just, again, it's just like part of the party, you know. It is. It's just one more scene in the party as opposed to anything sort of deep. And even then, like the fact that the girls kind of hang around after that, yeah. It's messy. I do like the sort of resolution of it. It's just like, okay, well, they kiss, they send them on their way, and you get the sense that, okay, they're going to go out again. And maybe they've sort of crossed the bridge of being less awkward and having a little bit of self-confidence.
Yeah.
And I'll say that just because you're good at spouting off at the mouth doesn't mean you can't lack self-confidence, Craig.
Yes.
Like Gary. Haven't you known like a real smart ass kid who's like just, you don't like him because of how much he talks and because of how much of a smart ass he is, especially at that age? I've
definitely known smart ass kids who spout off of the mouth and are not self-confident, but I would counter with this.
They're not as
Generally,
funny.
the stuff they spout off about is not very clever and it ain't very funny.
Okay, so well, let me ask you this then. Are you capable of laughing? I mean, do you find his performance funny?
A lot of it I do.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I love the riffing. Like, I love it.
Yes.
And I think he's so good with that stuff. He's so good that I think sometimes it goes overboard. I don't like the bar scene. I do not like the bar scene.
I love the bar scene.
I feel like people love it, and I can't. I've never been able to take it, and not even for like probably like the racist grounds that I should take it from. But I don't like. It's never been funny to me. It always seemed like he was doing like an Eddie Murphy character or something. Like, it just didn't feel
see that.
Right.
I can see that.
But I always thought that was a setup for him sort of getting out of his shell a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it's not really. But then he kind of comes off cool. He's drunk and he's cool. And then he wakes up. And I don't know. Like, he seems so relaxed with everybody. And he mouths off at Bill Paxton, who's fantastic.
So good.
I should start talking about the things I like about the movie, because I really like the whole premise.
No, I think this is good. We'll
love.
get to that stuff, because I do think you're right. Like, if you're of a certain age, you're probably going to find a lot of this humorous, and I think a lot of the comedy holds up. So it's good that we're talking about maybe the stuff that, it did not compete with Breakfast Club at the box office. So clearly you're not like alone in your thinking, and I don't think it's generally held as high of a regard. I'm looking at it right now. It's got a overall 6.6 out of 10 star rating on IMDb. So I mean, I don't think maybe in the context of great classic 80 movies, maybe this isn't in the top 30, perhaps, for a lot of people. I don't know. For me, it's just it was a seminal movie. I definitely watch it with rose-colored nostalgic glasses.
Me too.
I think
that song, man.
The song, it kills you. Yeah. I think one of the things I did notice that was kind of interesting was just a little on the structure stuff was what you're talking about here. It hits the ground running and establishes everything that you're going to really get to know about these guys in that gym class scene, right? And it does it, the whole movie does, through the voice and the mouth box of Anthony Michael Hall. You know, he's talking about, I even wrote down, it's like, you know, he's going to meet these girls, they're going to bring him back, they're going to shower, hit the city, drinks, nightlife, huge party, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, holy shit, that's everything that happens in this movie. Like right there in the opening minute of it. And then, you know, excuse me, you get Wyatt's line that's like, nobody likes us. He says, don't ruin the fantasy. And that's it. I mean, that is your premise right there, kind of. That's telling you what's going to happen. But like you, I did sort of find myself being surprised somewhat that that bar scene is really the first thing they do with Lisa, you know? I mean, they shower, of course, and that's hilarious.
Yes.
Because they're wearing their jeans. But that's where they go. And like in my head, I think even I sort of remember it as like, okay, that's like, did they go to Gary's parents first and then the bar and then there was something else before they come home and then chat? And it's like, nope, they go to the bar. And I was even thinking about, too, just the writing of that. That's a long scene.
Yeah.
And it's broken up by a time jump. But that would be, you know, especially for that early in the movie, like I would be intimidated by having that on the page in front of me. Like, oh, God, you've got 6 pages of bar scene in the first 15 minutes of this movie.
Although I would argue it's probably not 6 pages of bar scene. On the
it was
page.
Probably 2, and then he riffed for...
Yeah. Like that riff might not even been a part of the movie until they were like, it's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, there are funny bits of it. There are definitely funny bits of it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mean to completely put it down.
No.
But it's always bugged me. But that's another thing that kind of bugged me, too. And again, I'm just enjoying the premise. I love the fact they create her, and they're in the shower, and they're sort of like, what do we do? And, like, all that stuff is golden.
Yeah.
And then the next thing, she's like, well, give me a name. I'm Lisa. Okay, so what are we going to do? Well, I want to go party. And it's just like, and that's fine, because kind of just like when they create her, like there's almost nothing that really leads up to that.
Nope. Yeah.
And that's
they watch Frankenstein.
That's so awesome. Right.
Yeah.
They watch Frankenstein, and then suddenly they have, like you can't get too logical with it anyway. But it's like, well, and I'm going to create all this software right now where we can just create these, like, I don't know.
Such good software, too, by the way.
Yeah. really high-end stuff.
Yeah.
And, like, some of it's just, like, goofing off and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But then they create, like, a woman. And it's like they don't spend too much time on that. Like, they don't have, like, I feel like if it was a movie made now, you'd have to have some more rational conversation, like reason for there to be an actual woman who results from this.
Yeah. I really think with both of these movies, and just in general, like from what we've been watching so far, what a great experience just looking at like economy of setup and just getting to the fun and games part of your second act.
Yeah.
Because that's really all this movie is.
The movie, no. Yeah, let's be honest. The movie is fun and games.
Yes, totally.
Like,
it's wish fulfillment from start to finish. Yeah.
There's really, I mean, like, you look at the mutants bit, you look at them hooking up with the girls at the end, there's almost nothing that connects any of that. Like, it's just like, here we go. And like, here are a bunch of vignettes that are funny, and then we'll throw in some of this stuff. They show down these mutants who have never appeared anywhere before.
Nope.
And it doesn't really mean anything that they show them down because they're not really real, but it's fine. Like, that's fine. And it's just craziness from beginning to end. And see, that is what I like about it.
Well, and actually thinking about it, maybe, you know what? Maybe I can wrap my head around the fact that John Hughes, churned this sucker out, at least the first draft, in about 2 days. Because there is something about it that feels episodic in a way that your brain might work if you were just writing that quickly.
Sure.
The biggest difference, I mean, obviously, like we talked about, I don't think there's any way that they go into production with a script that was just written in 2 pages and that was it. But he's got such good comedic chops, and he's so good with all of these young actors. I mean, especially, and we can get to this, but like just all the stupid little details that he does with Downey Jr. and Robert Russler. I mean, it's ridiculous. And like the grandparents and all these things that just would be cliche or bad or just not funny and not fun in somebody else's hands. I mean, he just did it. I mean, he just destroyed that stuff. Second nature to him. Let's see here. I was trying to think if there's anything else, like, I don't know, structure or bigger picture or anything. Oh, actually, yeah, okay. I got one thing. Let's talk about the very, very end here for a second.
Okay.
As we are wont to do when we jump around with these things. But, you know, maybe like Fright Night, we've got a reappearance of a character who we thought was disappeared. And one that doesn't necessarily make sense to me. You know, Kelly LeBrock says it's time for her to go. And after, you know, Gary and Wyatt have found girls and self-confidence and they maybe don't need her tutelage, she disappears in a cloud of smoke in their room, much like the way she entered. And then she shows up as the PE teacher at their high school.
Right.
Does that make any kind of sense to you?
It doesn't. And I think that why I don't begrudge it, that ending in any way, is none of her existence was ever logical in any way. There were no rules. It made no sense.
But if she was really leaving them,
right,
she can't show up at their high school again. I mean, right?
Well, but why is she leaving them? Why does she know she has to leave them? She
because
was made
they've
from a
learned
computer
a
and came out of red smoke.
Because they don't need that computer girl anymore. I don't know. To me, it cheapens it a little. Even if she were a PE teacher at some other school or something,
right?
That would make slightly more sense to me. Though I don't know. It just felt like one of these things that you got to have in the movies so you can have the nice freeze frame moment.
You just have that last jolt. Yeah.
That last little jolt.
You had to end with her.
Yeah. But speaking of freeze frame, maybe this is a good time actually, you know, in addition to just the teen sex kind of comedy of it all, genre-wise.
Right.
I mean, there's so many good and just prominent 80s tropes and little details in this movie, I think, in general, including the freeze frame ending, including our sort of extended sequence where we're watching the classic Frankenstein movie with them as they're watching that, and that having impact on the plot, not unlike we saw in Fright Night, right?
Oh, yeah.
I love that stuff. And I forgot, like, that scene is maybe, like, one of the only ones in the whole movie, but definitely in, like, that first act where they stop talking for a damn minute, right? And they're just sitting there and watching this, and you're kind of seeing the wheels turn. And, like, the way that Michael Hawthorne kind of gets into that is sort of interesting because it is kind of like a serious moment where, you know, obviously it's just him spouting out the concept of this movie and the what if of it all. We've got a calculator watch.
Oh, yeah.
Worn by Wyatt there. I feel like the grandparents are a little bit of an 80s trope. Well, maybe not. I don't know. That sort of like upper class over pronunciation of a straight and narrow square, you know? I mean, they're definitely like the epitome of that. I also was curious and trying to remember, is this I guess it's not the first Hughes movie where he breaks the fourth wall, is it?
No.
Did they do it?
There was a lot in 16 Candles.
Oh, that's right. Okay, and that came out before this, right? Okay.
Yeah,
because there's only a few moments in this movie, but I know Gary got it. Gary and I believe Lisa did as well at certain moments. We have a Dirty Harry reference, the "Go ahead, make my day" kind of thing with the parents, which was great. And let's see, I think that was it, really. I mean, obviously, the whole movie is like an 80s trope, but
the completely out of control party, but that's not. That's a little vague, I guess.
Well, what about they use the Rocky music or a version of the Rocky music?
Sure.
They use Thus Spake Zarathustra, the 2001 Space Odyssey theme, version of that.
A version of it, yeah.
Yeah, in the
Which
opening.
was kind of weird. I was wondering about that, actually.
I know. It's like, why couldn't they just... I thought that was
the real
public
thing.
domain, yeah, at this point. Maybe not, but
Yeah.
that was kind of interesting. Well, maybe let's shift then and just heap some praise on this movie about stuff that really just still kind of works really well for both of us. I got to start with just the sheer power of Kelly LeBrock's entrance onto screen. I mean, it's amazing. Like, it really, to me, like, that is, like, it's just an iconic image. I mean, that's the image of this movie. And, like, it's so great. The look, everything. And then just, that line is great, too, about the little maniacs. I mean, like, such a fun thing to call them. And you kind of already know, like, exactly what they want to do. Because of that opening scene. And it hasn't been long since we've seen that, but love it. You just kind of like stare at it in awe. And it's one of those things that at a certain point, I know it's going to feel dated. It's got to, right. But it didn't to me this time. Not yet.
It's interesting. I think you're right. It didn't for me either. And it is one of those shots that I just burned in my brain. That whole sequence.
Yeah. Okay.
And this was like prime, like Amazing Stories, Twilight Zone time for me as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so like anything that had a premise like this, I was so on board for. Like anything where it's like normal kids and then, supernatural stuff starts to happen. Great. So yeah, totally. I think you're right. I think it is iconic.
Yeah,
it is one of those moments. It just works that well.
Let me ask you this though: if you were creating a woman, Craig, would you give her anything in common with David Lee Roth?
Would I feed a picture of David Lee Roth in?
Yeah. Would you put that in the scanner?
That's a really good question. I don't think that would occur to me. I don't think it would have occurred to me then.
Yeah. I mean, that was one of those things that I feel like somebody could have pulled him inside and said, "You sure you want to do this? This might feel, just think ahead 15 years. Is this going to seem dated a little bit?" No. It's cool. David Lee Roth is awesome, man. He's like the coolest.
Yeah.
Like, he's a party guy. He's fun,
But man, they're lucky, really.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, there's a number of people you could feed into that machine that now, if you were watching it, you'd be like, oh, not that guy.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad they didn't put Bill Cosby in that machine.
Bill Cosby. Although that would have been a weird choice overall.
So
that's maybe sense of humor at the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that exactly. Like that could have really backfired. So at least it's, it kind of feels like, somebody who's wild.
Yeah. It was kind of funny actually watching that sequence again, too. Just all the like little dumb supernatural touches that happen during.
Yeah.
Because I forgot that it goes beyond their house. I mean, there's a dog on the ceiling in some other random lady's house.
Yeah.
And there's the town sign goes up in flames. It's just all these like little non sequitur cutaways.
So bizarre. But even just inside the house, like the kitchen turning blue. And all that stuff is pretty fun.
Yeah.
I like that.
Well, let's talk about Bill Paxton then for sure, because I think he's the other, powerhouse performance in this thing. I mean, in some ways, if you want to sit down and tell me that he steals the entire movie, if you're that person, I would have a hard time arguing with you, Yeah.
Well, he's definitely got, for my money, he's got the funniest bit in the movie.
Which is?
I mean, he's not necessarily on screen for it, but it's when he goes in and he's holding Anthony Michael Hall and the girl at with his shotgun.
Yes.
He's got a shotgun on the both of them, which is already funny enough.
Yeah.
And he's already sort of, the other funny part is like he keeps hitting Anthony Michael Hall on the top of the head with the shotgun.
Mm-hmm.
But the moment that has never failed to make me laugh since the first time I saw it is there's a moment where he kind of like, he's like, he gets whatever information he needs and he's kind of like, all right. And he kind of aims it at her and then aims it slowly at Anthony Michael Hall and then hits them both on the head. And that kills me every time. The timing of that destroys me. And like, because they're both like, and it looks like it hurts really bad. And it makes me laugh so hard. But yeah, I mean, he is absolutely a force. Even when he's not necessarily super funny, man, he is, he's good. He's a standout.
Well, I was going to say, even in that same scene, just him putting the shotgun, pushing it against the girl's nose to the point that it's like bending.
That's her, Chet.
Dude,
That's her nose, Chet.
you would get arrested for that. I mean, that's like, you know, that is definitely, you know, assault. And what's so funny in this, I just, you know, it was I just marvel at the dude's hair. Like that haircut is something else.
Amazing.
It's really, like it goes at an angle, and then there's like a little. I noticed like it does kind of like come up on the sides a little bit, and they pushed it up a little bit. But all that stuff, like I don't understand. I would love to know where him almost mimicking having a hairball, like a cat having a hairball, in that scene where he's, you know, he's clearly just kind of riffing and ribbing Anthony Michael Hall, trying to make him puke.
Right.
But like, what is that? Like, who thought of that? Because it's so gross and yet so funny, and just like if he had said nothing else in the movie, I would remember that moment for sure, because it's so, it just makes me gag, and it's so gross and funny. Where do you stand on the decision to turn him, or any character for that matter, into a living piece of doo-doo? Does that cross a line?
Well, here's the first thing I got to tell you, and this is where I feel like a real moron.
Uh-oh.
For a long time, and even now, I don't really accept the fact that he is a big pile of poop.
What do you mean? You just willfully choose not to believe that? What do you think?
I don't want to. No. I don't want to get graphic with our listeners.
Let's do it.
But let's go look in our bowls, and you tell me, is that what your poop looks like? Like, does it have boils that are popping and shit like that?
No.
I never thought of it. I mean, I always thought of it as being like he's like a big mutant, disgusting toad.
Yeah.
I never, because no one ever comes in and like, oh man, or maybe they do. I don't remember like the smell of him or anything. But I never thought of it as him being a big pile of poop.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that too, because I noticed and actually got a little chuckle out of the fact that at one point in the movie when Max and Ian, Robert Downey and what is it, Robert Russler? Is that the guy's name? I forgot already. I've said it like 18 times.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, Robert Russler are talking to Lisa. Robert Downey Jr. at one point, you know, he's like, he calls Gary and Wyatt toads. And I was like, there's something that's so stupid about that as an insult that made me laugh. And then, Chet does kind of look like a turd toad, kind of.
He does eat a fly.
Yeah.
Maybe that's where I got it from. I just always thought he was like a gross little toad. Yeah. But I've seen him described as a pile of shit.
Yeah, I mean, they call him that in the movie, if I'm not mistaken, right? Yeah.
And I'm fine with that. I think it's fun that he gets turned into a thing, but it's kind of like everything else where it doesn't have really much weight. Like, it's just like, well, you've been kind of mean to everybody, and so now you're a toad. And it's just another weird sort of thing. So it's kind of exciting that it's a weird thing, but I don't feel much payoff with it.
Right. I forgot about the boils and stuff. Those were so gross. Like, even just
they're really gross.
I wonder, like, what the cutoff was age-wise at the time that this movie came out, where there was probably, like, people who were like, yeah, no, I'm not into this. This movie is dumb, and I can't. But like somebody just rolling their eyes when they saw that they turned Chet into a turd. You know,
it does seem perfect for 13-year-old boys.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. It was like me, being younger than that, and then watching it, of course, over and over throughout that period of my life. I'm just like, this is like, the crazy thing about this movie, and maybe even most of these teen movies by John Hughes, is that in some ways they probably do play to the middle school crowd as well as they do, the crowd that's already in high school and like living these things, Because you're right, it is like, especially this movie, it is that sort of wish fulfillment of, and these guys are so young. I mean, they're basically just in high school.
Yeah.
Maybe this is his ode to middle school kids here, really.
Mm-hmm.
Too bad he didn't make a middle school movie, man. People, where's that? I mean, that just gets too weird, probably.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it would have been weird, but man, who better to like dive into the middle school? Like, people wouldn't even been thinking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still love everything at the mall. Just is so funny to me. I mean, those guys
the dance.
Well, the people then like spraying perfume in the air, and Anthony Michael Hall calling them scents. Like, 3 cents, please. Wrap up 3 cents. Like,
Yeah.
Makes me laugh. I noticed that there's a store in the mall called Wicks and Sticks, which I think is a candle store. That made me laugh. The icy. The Robert Downey Jr. and Robert Russell are like, as the girlfriends are talking about, I don't know, should we break up with them? They're in the background just making like weird gestures.
So funny. I love that. It's so bizarre, but it's just like
it is, and it's such a like I just wouldn't have thought of doing that. Like I don't think I would have come up with that for your bully characters. Like it made them in some weird way likable and dislikable at the same time. You know. Did you notice that Downey Jr. in that scene, the mall scene, has a popped collar?
Oh yeah,
that's crazy. I didn't know that was like that period for that thing. It was kind of nuts.
Oh yeah.
But the Porsche picking her up,
prominent collar.
Yeah, and such a good. I love how they did the introduction of Lisa to those two guys on the escalator.
Yes.
It's great. And like they make no bones about it. They like immediately ditch their girlfriends and are going after her. And you've got that line of extras standing, like turning their heads as Lisa walks by. And then Robert Downey Jr. and that guy, they just slap every single one of them as they walk by. Hilarious. Like it's just, to me, like good. That is like, that's like quintessential 80s humor right there too,
Good bits.
There's a lot of toilet humor in this movie, though, that's for sure. And I always, I loved, like floating an air biscuit, that line, dropping wolf fate, all that stuff. Like to me, the slap, that's such a great slap when I'm jumping ahead to the party, but when the girls are knocking on the door, oh God.
Well, that's one of the moments I want to talk about, though.
Yeah, we should talk about that scene. It was a weird scene, but it still makes me laugh,
Yeah, probably like good tension. I like it. I like the fact they're hiding in the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of reconnects us with the fact that they're outcasts. They don't know how to deal with all these people.
Yep.
But Wyatt does take a dump in there. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so.
Because he flushes the toilet and they're like burning something.
Yeah, he definitely is farting, for sure.
Yeah, I knew that.
I mean, I would not be I wouldn't want somebody in the bathroom with me if I were doing that. And I certainly would not volunteer to stay. I would hide somewhere else in that house.
Right.
So that's a little forced.
It feels like, I mean, it's possible.
Sure.
And that's not even my major qualm, though.
Okay, well, let's break it down.
If you're bros enough where you can poop in a bathroom with your bro.
Yeah, we're not at that point, Craig, but go ahead. Yeah.
I'm not. No. That's totally fine with me. But I'm going off the assumption that he does unload in the bathroom at that point, and then the girls show up.
Yeah, and
I kind of love that because now Gary's like, "Oh no, you can't come in here." But eventually the girls do go in there. I mean, it's been like 3 minutes since the toilet was flushed.
Yeah,
and I just feel like that bathroom still stinks, and I can't get that out of my head the whole time I'm watching that scene. Like, there's no way that bathroom with now 4 people in it does not smell bad.
Did they spray air freshener or anything? I can't remember. Either
All
way.
I remember is Wyatt like burning paper or something. And even so, hey, spray as much air freshener as you want. In 3 minutes, I think he still stinks a little bit. You wouldn't want the girls you have crushes on. And that's what's so great is it's such a nightmare situation.
Right.
The girls you have crushes on wandering into a bathroom where you just took a dump.
Yeah.
That's horrifying.
Would it have been funnier if they had acknowledged the smell or no?
I don't know. Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
And it's like just Gary and Wyatt just trying to convince them that it's something else, or I don't know. I think there's comedic potential there, but I mean, I think comedy is pretty well squeezed out.
Gotcha.
In everything. No pun intended.
Oh, definitely pun intended. I do love, though, them stepping into the shower, and what are we going to do? There's the close on their mouth.
Yeah.
They suddenly get serious and devise a plan, and immediately ruined.
And what that in particular, and this is going to go nowhere, except that John Hughes wrote and directed, I believe, Uncle Buck.
He did, yeah.
And that little bit between Gary and Wyatt, the rhythm of it just reminded me so much of, and I think there's a similar thing in 16 Candles, but it reminded me so much of Big John Candy and Little Home
Little
Alone.
Mac, yeah.
You remember when he like grills John Candy when he shows up, and it's just like
Why did you hear it? Yeah.
Something about that rhythm just cracks me up, and it worked in this one too. I kind of like that as a little John Hughes tool.
Yeah,
tool.
It's definitely one of his tools. I mean, and that's what it is kind of refreshing in some ways to like watch these movies, because it does feel like there's a good variety of jokes, you know.
Yeah.
And it's coming from everywhere too. Like I was just noticing how many times, I think it's Robert Russler, he just makes like weird noises and stuff. He's yeah. Like there's one time like that, and then when they show up at the party, he's like, "How you doing?" Like he's just like, there's no rhyme or reason for him pronouncing things weirdly. He just does, and it makes like I remembered it as clear as day from watching it back. Like it just sticks with you, and it makes me laugh. Again, a different way. There's not like a deep chest laugh. It's not a physical gag or anything like that, but it's just. Yeah, it's nice, just variety of humor.
Well, and I think Hughes really cast the hell out of it.
Oh God, yeah.
Because I mean, of course, Robert Downey Jr. can riff and come up with weird, funny stuff to do. Like it does kind of feel like there's a very loose feeling to the whole thing, and that is kind of cool.
Even the decision to get those like one-shot looks from those two guys at Lisa, where Robert Downey Jr. bets. I mean, it's great.
Like, why? Why am I laughing at just that look? But it's funny.
Yeah, and why would you? I wouldn't even think to include that. It's such a stupid little thing, but yeah,
it's weird.
It's great.
It's great.
And that actually, maybe we can tie this up here. My biggest takeaway from watching this movie this time, God, I wish I could have been an extra for the party scene. You know.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking about it, again, super long scene. And so I bet most of those extras were there for several days of shooting. And you get all the fun of like the motorcycle gang coming in. And then that whole sequence, you've got Downey Jr. there. They're all on set. Everybody's there. And then the aftermath of that scene, and then the craziness of the missile coming up through the room and the place that's blue. I mean, obviously, I'm sure they're shot it on the set, but still. Oh, man, if I could go back in time, that would be that's where I'm going to insert myself in 1985 movies, Craig. That scene.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. That may change when we watch, like, Out of Africa or something, you know, maybe I'll see something where I'm like, no, I want to be that.
Don't play that hand yet.
I don't know. I'm calling it now. No, I don't know. I don't think I'm going to take it back. I'm saying right now, if I could put myself in any 1985 movie, maybe that's it. Party scene.
Fair enough.
And Weird Science.
I'll say this. Consider for a moment the coolest people in the movie. All the people who were the coolest, who looked the best, and are the coolest in the movie.
Yep.
I feel like overall, the fashion choices of our two dorky heroes have aged much better.
I think so. Yeah.
Just one thing I was thinking when I was watching, especially Russler and Downey.
Oh God, yeah.
Like most of that, like the stuff they're wearing is just like, what is that?
Did you notice?
Is that what we were doing?
Yeah, the weird thing that Russler had on his hand when he shows up to the party. Like I don't even know how to describe it. It's
I don't know.
It's some weird
little
spider glove.
Hughes was always like on the cutting edge of that stuff.
Yeah.
Like so cutting edge that it came and went within like 2 years.
Oh yeah. I mean the soundtrack and everything. Yeah. It's just right on top of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he was working quickly, obviously. I mean, he churned these movies out pretty quickly within one another, so he seized the moment.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, he did this in Breakfast Club, like
same
back
year,
to back, more or less. Like it was like boom. So yeah.
I miss him.
I do.
Shall we take a trip, Craig, to a resort?
A private resort.
Okay, dudes, you ready to blast off?
Private resort. Let me talk about the synopsis for Private Resort.
Okay.
Shawn.
And then I want to ask you a question before we get any further, then you can take over for sure.
Okay.
But you go
Okay.
ahead. Yes, synopsis is us.
Okay, Jack and Ben are teen buddies who are on the sexual prowl for beautiful, wealthy girls at a posh Miami resort where they are weekend guests. Also on the prowl is the Maestro, a skilled jewel thief who is pursuing the diamond necklace of society woman Amanda Rawlings. And then they accidentally run afoul of the Maestro.
Yep.
So I guess that's the movie. That is kind of the movie.
Yeah.
What's your question, Shawn?
This parlay's great to my question, actually.
Oh, good.
I just want to try a little experiment here, Craig.
Sure.
I want you to tell me everything you know about Jack and Ben, Rob Morrow, Johnny Depp, that you learned from the movie itself. Go. What do you know about them as people?
You see, you asked that question, but I gleaned a lot here.
Okay. From the
Starting
movie.
with
From the
number
movie,
one,
not
yes.
the internet. Okay.
Only from the movie.
Okay.
Nothing from the internet. Number one, they love the ladies.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, go
I mean,
ahead.
from scene number one,
Yeah, keep going.
Shawn,
Keep going.
these are two guys who love the ladies.
Yeah, keep going.
All right? Is it the same thing to say that they're trying to hook up with ladies? That feels like the same thing.
Yeah, I'm going to call that the same thing. Yeah, keep going.
They want to drug ladies. Yeah, I feel like a lot of this is the same thing. So let's. Yeah, I mean, your
saying
point's
they-
very well taken, Shawn.
Maybe.
Because not only do we not know anything about them, like, here's the thing. Yeah, I mean, we don't know anything about that. When you were a teenager, not a teenager, but these guys are probably in their 20s. We don't even know how old they are.
I was going to ask you, how old are these guys?
Because it's never set up. We never talk about college or high school. I assume they must be college because they're not there with their families. And I was just like, how many private resorts did you go to in your early 20s? Just you and a buddy.
I can
And
safely
you
say
went there.
none, Craig.
And you paid all that money, Shawn. You paid all that dough because you love the ladies.
Again, the
Yeah,
answer is zero.
It's a weird. It's a weird setup. See, that's the thing. Whenever I read the synopsis in my head, I just had this feeling of like, hey, you graduated from something, and your parents gave you this gift to send you to this resort or something. But there's nothing. I mean, the first thing you see is them just walking through a resort, and apparently they paid for it. Like these two buddies went there to get laid, I guess.
Well, I'm not we'll just pause for 1 second here because I'm going to actually point the finger to at Wikipedia here and probably some of the movie's marketing, because right here it says Johnny Depp and Rob Morrow stars Jack and Ben, respectively, teen buddies. Teen buddies who are on the sexual prowl for beautiful.
Oh, teen buddies. You're right. I just read that, for God's sake. Okay.
I have a hard, because that was their whole thing. It's like, well, let's take a look at two very different, at least successfully different teen sex comedies here, and by everything I had read, was led to believe that Johnny Depp and Rob Morrow were playing teenagers in this movie. Maybe they're 19. Again, maybe the drinking age is 18 in Florida at the time. Possibly, don't know.
Sure.
But I'm with you in thinking, I don't know. Maybe they're not teens, maybe they're supposed to be into. But anyway, larger point is, I do think this may be the least amount of exposition I've ever got from a single movie in my life.
Oh yeah.
Specifically about the main characters.
Yeah, and it's a really good symptom of something that runs through the whole movie to a fascinating degree, which is this movie is so out of whack. If you really watch it, like, there are scenes toward the end of the movie that clearly took place originally at the beginning of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like there are like, and it's sort of just this big jumbled mess of things that were cut together, and it kind of just feels like this is something like, as its regular story, it must have just not been moving at all, and they just said, let's just chop it up, and forget about their backstory, forget about why ever they're there. Let's just focus on the jewel thief, and we'll just, like, maybe they shot some more scenes of just like hijinks, which honestly, a lot of the hijinks kind of worked, at least better than Dangerous Curves, which we were talking about before, I feel like. Maybe that should be my question for you, is like, how do you feel about this movie, Shawn? Like, did this come out ahead of Dangerous Curves for you?
It absolutely did, and that's what I wanted to follow up with and put that out there, because, by God, I did kind of enjoy this stupid movie. I mean, it's not...
Yeah.
We'll spend the rest of this talking about why it's not good. It is not a good movie by any standard.
No.
And I think you're absolutely right about some reshuffling of sequences here. And there's some repetitive sequences, too.
Sure.
But it's kind of fun. It could be a movie that falls into the so bad it's good category a little bit. But I do feel like a lot of the laughs are intentional. Like, it doesn't share, it's not The Room. It's not Trolls 2.
Right.
It's not that kind of thing. That's not what I'm talking about here. But I think, again, like, just from talking about the fact that you don't know a damn thing about your two leads, and you will not for the entire movie. I barely knew their name. I couldn't tell you where they came from. I don't know if they had parents. Maybe they're orphans. Maybe they were killed. Their parents were killed. Maybe they killed their parents. You do not know. So you kind of do not care. But they're likable enough, and I think there's enough good gags, nostalgically good gags, I think. This is definitely a movie of its time, and it wouldn't even exist if it were not of its time. That it kind of works in a weird, stupid way.
It does, and I feel like what it shares with Weird Science that it does not share with Dangerous Curves, for instance, is they both have a very confident pace.
Yeah.
So even if things don't work, like a gag falls short, it doesn't matter. Like, they're not just sitting on it.
82 minutes. You're not going to be bored.
82 minutes, it's real quick.
Super quick.
They like their set pieces. Like, there's the whole thing with the barber and
the security guard.
It's ridiculous. Yeah. It's porno level storytelling.
Yeah.
Like, it's like,
that's funny.
None of this would be happening.
And
no
there's
one
boobs,
would.
so yeah.
Oh yeah. Believe me, it comes so close.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, so much of it is there. You can't really buy any of it, so you have to buy into it just to kind of enjoy it. But there's these long set pieces, like I don't know, Rob Morrow gives Hector Elizondo the worst haircut in history. Which I also think is, I feel like that's almost impossible. Like, you could have given like a bad, but of course it's totally over the top.
Yeah, no, you would
Terrible
have to.
Haircut.
Yeah. I mean, with your non-dominant hand blindfolded, you might achieve that haircut, but otherwise, he could have faked that so easily and not done such a terrible job. And that, I mean, listen to us right here. We need to stop and recognize that this movie the plot of this movie hinges upon a jewel thief getting mad that a hapless boy pretended to be a barber and gave him a bad haircut and wants revenge through the rest of the movie.
Through the rest of the movie.
That's what we're talking about here, folks. So, and it's fun. But it's still funny. Like, it's
exactly.
I mean, that is nothing to hang your head on.
You set up that gag, and the gag runs the rest of the way through the movie. Like, they don't lose that thread. But like, I still love, like, just the porno level logic of like, so Johnny Depp gets stuck in the closet of this woman because he's for some reason convinced that she left him her hotel key because she wants to sleep with him. So he's now naked in her closet while Rob Morrow is giving him a terrible haircut out in the main area of their suite, and she comes in and finds Johnny Depp naked in the closet.
I wanted to emphasize the fact that he was naked and that he got naked right in front of Rob Morrow and then just moved into... I thought that was a weird call. I mean, he could have waited, gone into the other room. He could have just left his boxers on until she got there. But he didn't. That's not how it went.
No, I agree. Totally weird call. Aside from the fact that it sets up, like, the tension a little bit later.
Yeah.
But again, we are also talking about two movies about bros who are very, very tight, Shawn.
They are tight.
And they're so tight that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I'm going to like, hey man, I'm going to be in this other room having sex with somebody we just met, and you're going to hang out here.
Yeah.
Cool? Cool. All right, I'm going to take my clothes off right now.
Now, if they had done that in the bathroom,
I never experienced, but that doesn't mean they don't happen.
Yeah, if they had done that in the bathroom right after one of them had taken a dump, I mean, we would have had the ultimate bro down.
That would have been pure gold.
We should mention actually that the wife of Hector Elizondo, the wife of the jewel thief, I think she's his wife, right? Yeah,
something like
the
that.
blonde bombshell. I mean, I just completely overly exaggerated everything. Is Leslie Easterbrook, who was in she's in all the Police Academy movies. She's Callahan.
Leslie Easterbrook. Yeah. And she's great.
Yeah, we'll see her again too.
She's great in this.
Yeah, Police Academy too.
She's great in it. And in this scene, her husband is about to come into the room, so she grabs Johnny Depp and hides him under the covers. Like, she gets in the bed and hides him under the covers, pretends like she's the only person in the bed. Again, nothing that anyone would ever do. Your mind would never go there in 1,000 years. Leave him in the closet, regardless. But his leg is sticking out from under the blanket. And I can't tell you how much this gag works for me.
Hairy leg.
Mainly because, so you see her at the top of the bed, you see his hairy leg sticking out, and you know from the second you see the hairy leg, Hector Elizondo is going to touch that leg and not realize there's a man in the room.
Yeah.
And Shawn, I like that on so many levels because, again, it's the dumbest thing. If I touched my wife's legs, and I have no idea how often she shaves her legs, but if I touched her legs and they felt like mine, I'd be like, that's not her leg.
It's not normal, yeah.
There's no way I would think that was her leg.
Well, not only that.
It's great. It's so great. I love it.
Great enough that they did it again, basically. The same gag when he was in the bathtub and had soap suds over his face and pulled Rob Morrow into the tub and squeezed his boobs and had to put his hand in the water to his junk before he could figure out that also was not his wife.
That is really, that level of comedy is totally consistent through the whole movie.
Yeah.
And so much of that works just fine for me.
Yeah. I mean,
it's so ridiculous. It's great.
It is. It's got a very summer camp kind of vibe to the movie. Mm-hmm. I'd be remiss if I didn't say there's a little bit of, if you like Red Oaks, you might like a little bit of this movie.
I got that in my notes. I was going to bring that up later. It's like Red Oaks is the thinking man's private resort.
Thank you. I don't know. Absolutely. I don't remember that being referenced in any of our discussions, but it should have been for sure.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
I don't know. I mean, I'm curious about this movie in some ways because watching it, I did kind of feel like, and I think the we talked about the box office results, which kind of indicate the same thing. This is not something that I was aware of at the time. Again, I was like 8 years old when this movie would have come out and didn't even think about it too much later. But it's interesting to look back at a movie like this and then think about this was clearly a poor man's knockoff of one of those other movies,
Yes.
That's why this existed. It's like I kept thinking about like, we sort of got into that a little bit with what was it, like Volcano and then the other Volcano movie and some of those, or even like you see it with musical scenes like, Nirvana explodes and 6 months later you've got
everything's grunge.
Way, way, way lesser versions of Nirvana out there. And so this is the way, way lesser version of 1985's Nirvana.
Sure.
And so, it was kind of interesting to look at it like in that lens and wonder, about people at the time just watching this going, oh, God, like this is just such a crappy version of something I've seen a million times. Or if they're just like, but more the merrier, I don't know. But it's an interesting flick for sure, because again, like I really think the only bit of information you get is that these guys are here. They say at the upfront that they're there for 4 days. And I think I don't remember them ever saying the name of the resort. Do you?
No.
So you don't know that?
No.
There's a jewel thief there, and somehow he gets the most exposition of anybody in the movie. I mean, it could be one of these weird movies again where, like Bond or something, he is actually the protagonist and it's these other kids that are stopping him at every turn. But it's the kind of exposition that is delivered via Hector Elizondo in a pool, talking on a cordless telephone, using binoculars to look at the diamond on a woman she's seated like across the way. Now, I've been to several pools in my lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that would stand out to me. I feel like people would question, what is that man doing in the pool with binoculars, for starters?
Mm-hmm.
Should he be talking on a cordless phone right now while he's doing that in the pool?
Seems dangerous.
Yeah, all of those things. No, nobody raises an eyebrow with this. And yeah, it's just you got to roll with that. You know, it's also one of these movies where you could feel them kind of trying to create the level of fun of this place, especially in the opening. You know, the camera's moving around a lot and you're following a lot of different characters. And of course there's 20 different girls in suggestive poses in the opening of this thing, you know, in various level of cleavage hanging out. And the one pervert kid who's like trying to snatch away the bikini tops with a fishing line, and then later with like a weird little grabby claw thing. And that kid is like, again, it's a lesser version of something that probably worked better in a different movie that I can't think of. But God bless it, you know. It's like, of course, there's a pervy,
weird little pervert kid.
Kid. And he even got a line in the movie too. You remember that?
No, what was it?
I think it was after. Yeah. So Johnny Depp at a certain point is trying to hit up the Leslie Easterbrook character, who is Elizondo, the jewel thief's wife. She gets up, you know, she's nice about it, but she's like, yeah, you're coming on pretty strong. I don't think my husband would like that. Gets up from her pool lounger chair, and she has dropped her key. Johnny Depp is like, well, obviously she did that on purpose because she wants us to go up there. And I think it's when they sort of decide to go up to the room, the perv kid like pops up out of the water in the pool, or like he was right there. He's like, boy, I'd pay to see this. And then like to the camera, and then he wags his eyebrows suggestively.
Yeah.
Like at that point, I'm like, oh, good God. Like this is going to be, that was like, this is terrible, but I'm laughing. It's going to be all downhill from there. And
yeah,
I do think the biggest surprise of the movie, though, is the fact that they got comedy out of the Elizondo stuff. Because it just, again, like what we were talking about in the Tee-Up episode, there's a jewel thief in this movie. Like, to me, it still seems unbelievable. I mean, and there's no real rhyme or reason for it to be there, you know? It has nothing to do with these guys trying to get laid.
Yeah, no.
He's just an obstacle. And yeah, some of that shit was funny to me. I mean, you know, his stupid haircut, his stupid grabbing what he thinks is his wife's hairy leg, him meeting that old lady at a club and like trying to talk to her and realizing she's deaf and laughing at that, but then getting his hat knocked off on the dance floor and everybody laughing at his hair. she has to like, I'm gonna go do something else. I mean, it's so dumb. It's
really dumb. Well, let's talk about the aerobics class.
Yeah, I love the aerobics class.
Like, at least one time, Hector Elizondo is chasing Morrow and Depp through the resort, and they end up in an aerobics class.
Mm-hmm.
And Elizondo ends up at the front of the class. Depp and Rob end up at the back of the class. And the aerobics instructor is very forceful and somehow manages to get Hector, I guess, so scared or scared enough of her that he like pretends to be taking place in the aerobics class while trying to see where Depp and Rob Morrow are. And again, it's so dumb.
Yes.
It's so very deeply dumb. But it's
I laughed.
It's well-paced dumbness.
I wrote it down. Yeah, I made a note of it. It made me laugh.
Yeah, it's so goofy and yeah, I don't know. Like I don't know that there are really that many bits that are bad. I mean, outside of just the sort of general, like, you know, 1985 like misogyny of it. Like, I don't feel like there's not really a female character really to be had. I mean,
there's the
do get
waitress,
a little bit more, I think. Like there's the waitress,
Patty.
but and definitely she's certainly much more human, and she is not. I don't know. She definitely is kind of our guiding light.
Yeah.
Like she's not played to be an idiot like
Nope.
like the old lady or her
Cousin
you know,
Shirley.
whatever, cousin Shirley. And I mean Depp's woman, who is she?
No clue. Yep, couldn't tell you anything about her.
I ended up knowing nothing about her except that
Her name's
apparently
Dana.
her grandmother. That was her grandmother, right? Or was her mom?
That was her grandmother.
That was her grandmother. Her grandmother controls who she can see or not.
Well, they didn't even. They set up something where like he got a hot tip, Johnny Depp, from the luggage guy
Yes.
about
Which is
who the.
also pretty great. And
Yeah.
that's where I started thinking about Red Oaks, by the way.
Yeah, totally.
Anyway.
Totally. And that guy's like, okay, well, here's what you need to know. Like the grandma's blah, 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 blah. And then she's, controls whoever Dana sees and something. Somehow, I don't know, the idea of a doctor came up. So Johnny Depp pretends to be a doctor. And I don't remember them ever even resolving. Did the girl already know that he wasn't a doctor? She knew, right?
Yeah, I don't think she cared.
Okay.
I think she wasn't buying into it. Like it seemed like they were both, in a weird way, they were both talking the same language. Like he's telling the grandmother that he's a doctor, and she's like, whatever.
But I still expected
wanted
that
to
to somehow play out with a grandma, that was going to be like, you're not a doctor? Like one of those dumb scenes. But
Yeah.
they don't even do
you know-
that. Like it's not.
What I wanted was there to be like somebody in like cardiac arrest or something.
Oh, yeah,
later
yeah,
on,
yeah.
where the grandmother's, oh well, thank God we have a doctor, you
Yeah.
know, and then him having to fumble. I kind of felt like that was kind of a missed opportunity, but yeah, at the same time, I was glad they dropped that whole thing because it's super dumb.
It's super
and I
dumb.
didn't have to worry about it again for the rest of the movie.
And they already have the whole mistaken identity sort of thing with Rob Morrow having, with Elizondo thinking that Rob Morrow is actually the hotel barber, which I will say, if there is a gag that I will point at that really just kind of did nothing for me, it was the German hotel barber who was so stern and strong about being a barber. I mean, I kind of liked that he had a rivalry with the security guard, Reeves. But so it's just like one of those things where they end up in an elevator together, the two of them, these like minor characters, and they're like yelling at each other, and it turns into sort of like a Three Stooges fight. And I was like, they could have just cut that scene. But then no, I didn't realize, like, I give them actually credit because that was just like beat one. So then there's like another moment where some more people get on the elevator, including the clearly cookie cutter Spicoli ripoff, but with like the hedgehog pointy spiky haircut.
That guy was hot and cold for me, but man, sometimes it paid off.
Sometimes it worked, yeah. So then he gets on, and then there's another time when then there's another hot girl that thinks that the security guard is a perv. So like they did sort of like the rule of three thing a little bit, and I was like, oh, you know what? Okay, that's kind of funny. But I can't tell you anything about what else happened to that barber. I don't remember what the payoff was for that or anything.
No,
Like,
I
just
don't think
weird.
there was one.
Yeah.
Like, I think later he's accosted by the old lady who was taking all the Quaaludes. But I don't know what happened after that.
Yeah.
Like it's just like he's just like out. Yeah, it was very bizarre. It was very bizarre. Although I would like to bring up the security guy.
Yeah, let's talk about
I
him.
feel like like there wasn't. I don't know. He was never really given much of a character outside of just being like the uptight security guy. But I kind of found him to be really good in all of his moments. Like he was, even when the jokes made no sense at all. Like he was a really good, uptight security guard whose his sole purpose was to be like one-upped in every scene.
Absolutely.
Like whatever was happening, he would end the scene, no matter how right he was. He would end the scene like totally ruined.
I mean, he
And it was
is,
great.
in some ways just like physical comedy sort of relief there.
Yeah.
He reminded me of like, this is dumb, but like Borat in a weird way, and like Inspector Gadget for some reason. It's just some weird like look about the guy. It's Tony Azito, who's no longer with us, unfortunately. But it says he was in Moonstruck here, which I'd be interesting to see.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, but definitely a better security guard than in Dangerous Curves.
Yeah.
Although, and like he gets beat up so much in this movie, which that's kind of funny. And
Yes.
there's an amazing number of chase sequences in this movie. I mean, half the movie is spent
Yeah.
chasing Rob Morrow in the hallway or Johnny Depp in the hallway. And this is definitely a time before automatically locking hotel room doors because they just kind of come and go in and out of people's rooms all the time. And it just so happens that the rooms that they go into are rooms where there's already some sort of trouble brewing with somebody else that they know, including at one point someone played by Andrew Dice Clay, who in this movie did not have Dice in his credit. I think this was one of his first on-screen appearances, so it was just Andrew Clay.
But he did have hairy shoulders.
So hairy. Oh, man. Oh, so gross. I had a hard time with that. But
Yeah.
I think that it was a little repetitive. I mean, at a certain point, I didn't need to see Rob Morrow get chased again, especially when there's a moment where he's, of course, chased by Hector Elizondo into a room where they appear to be setting up for some sort of fashion show, because why not? I mean, it's a private resort. I guess that's the kind of thing that happens. And all these girls are getting dressed. And so he slips into a dress and a hat of some kind. And immediately, Elizondo is all over him. Andrew Dice Clay.
Oh, wow.
I mean, like, these guys are competing. Andrew Dice Clay and Elizondo, the two toughest guys in the movie, are so smitten with a man in a wig and a hat. You can't see his eyes.
Face they can't see.
Yeah, but you can still kind of... I mean, that's the thing. You can't even see this guy. How is he supposed to be that fetching? Or woman. How is she supposed to be that fetching that they're, like, grabbing her ass and sexually assaulting her in the freaking elevator? I
will
Go ahead.
to be an advocate for the movie. I would like to point out that that's pretty much the standard for every guy in the movie. Is does she have boobs?
Yeah.
Does she have a butt? Okay,
Good.
We'll
Good to
worry
go.
about that face later.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Although,
but it is hilarious though. Yeah. Again, you're absolutely right. Like, he's gone in there just eyes red after this barber that ruined his hair. Only thing he cares about. Yeah, and then it's Rob Morrow in a dress, and he's like, forget about that.
Yeah.
Like,
I know. I'm just ready to leave my wife, everything, because of this.
Yeah. I will.
Cross-dressing
Yes,
fool.
I'm done with all that. Yeah. Again, that's the level we're at.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about, just to complete our sort of side character trip here, Cousin Shirley, because that whole storyline, there's some stuff in that cracked me up a little bit.
Sure.
So yeah, Johnny Depp gets a date with the girl that's been the object of his affection, Dana, and she's the one who has a grandma, and also she says, well, I don't remember what the freaking setup was to this. Basically, it's just, we got to have a double date with my cousin Shirley, and Johnny Depp's like, oh, no problem, my friend Ben will come, Rob Moore. And they get into the room, and I really thought that was a really successful reveal of cousin Shirley, because you don't see her at first. They're in the room. There's sort of the anticipation of Rob Morrow kind of wondering what he's getting into here, because he's already kind of got the hots for the waitress, and this is sort of distracting him from that. He's supposed to meet her later that night, and they say something about cousin Shirley, and then she maybe you see her a second before she rises, like she's laying down flat on a couch, and she just sort of slowly rises up like Linda Blair in The Exorcist or something, but she's got this like white robe on and this white turban on. It's very, very white. Pretty attractive woman here. And certainly the actress is. But it was like, I did not expect that at all. And like, I was like, okay, what are we getting into here? But she's like, she's spiritually moved, not unlike Kate Winslet in Holy Smoke, and has devoted her new life to a guru who she has a picture of. And that picture is hilarious too. I mean, it's just this guy with like very like ridiculous smile on his face. And I found that storyline kind of funny. And the best beat of it, after I mean, clearly you can kind of see where it's going when we're cutting back and forth between the two dates. And Rob Morrow is in the room with Cousin Shirley, and she's like talking about freeing yourself from your external layers, and she's taking off her clothes, and she's gorgeous. And that doesn't go the way, obviously, Rob Morrow planned. But there's some point later where I think Rob Morrow is actually when he is in drag and trying to run away from the bad guys, which he does for 90% of this movie. He's out on the balcony and accidentally knocks a potted plant off, and it nails Cousin Shirley in the head. I laughed so hard at that. I mean, it's like, again, dumbest gag, but because of, I mean, she's so innocent, there's really no reason to dislike her whatsoever. I mean, she's just into her own thing, and she doesn't deserve to get a pot in the head. I know, so funny.
Why not? Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
And by elephant, I mean Quaaludes.
Yeah.
Because just before this date, which I agree is kind of one of the highlights. Like it gets pretty goofy in there.
Yeah.
And it's pretty fun. Oh man, but before, like, Johnny Depp is trying to get out of the room and go off on his date with his woman, and he's trying to get Rob to stay there, but Rob don't want to stay.
Yeah. And
I believe it's at this point, and Johnny Depp says, "Here, use these 3 of these, and she'll melt in your hand or something."
Yep.
And he's like, "Aspirin?" He says, "No, it's not aspirin. It's Quaaludes."
Yeah.
And especially now.
No, yeah, that's not. Yeah.
Having gone through the whole Bill Cosby thing.
Yep.
It's like, wow, that's super dark. These are our heroes who, granted, we know nothing about.
Sure.
Really, maybe there's not a real value judgment being made by the movie itself. It's just like, we told you didn't know these guys. Like,
well, and I think in
sure.
in number 4 of the Private series, which if you missed that previous episode, this is number 3 in a series of movies. There was Private Lessons and Private School, Matthew Modine and Phoebe Cates. So we got to see that at some point. But yeah, maybe if they had made a 4th one, they would have been like, "Oh, joke's on you. These 2 guys are serial rapists."
yeah. You thought you were in for another comedy.
Private Prison. No. But yeah, that stuff's a little icky to me. There were a couple things in here. I still think some of the nudity is, I mean, obviously, like, the whole movie's misogynistic and completely objectifies women.
Yeah.
Some of the nudity is at least playfully fun. But yeah, I mean, Dice Clay's woman, his woman, well, that's what he would have called her, his girlfriend or whatever, she passes out drunk, and like they're just dragging her around and dropping her, which some of the stuff I thought was kind of funny, but she's like in her bra and panties, and it's just like at a certain point that gets a little icky. Yeah. And then there's also
a lot of
there's like like fat humor in this too, and in both instances it's like, again, it's women, like, and the one was really disappointing because Johnny Depp is into this girl, and he like walks over to the pool, and there's a large woman swimming, and he's talking to her, and she's friends with the other girl, and he's I just thought, oh, that's kind of nice. Okay, he's like being nice to her to kind of ask about her friend.
Because right then you expect her to just immediately be a punchline of some kind, right?
Yeah.
But instead he's just relating to her as a human being. It's kind of like, oh, okay.
Right. But then he's like helping her out of the pool, and it's like, oh, nope, one person's not going to do it. So I think he enlists the security guard who happens to be walking by. But then he sees Leslie Easterbrook, if I'm not mistaken, and immediately just drops the girl, who then falls back in the water and pulls in the security guard. And then, which we got to talk about the sequence with the machine guns and shooting up the cafe, but like, there's gunfire taking place, and everybody's hitting the deck except for the one large woman who's like can't stop eating and is like reaching across everybody's plates now that they're under the table. It's just like, I don't know. Times have changed.
Not making me feel great.
A little bit. Yeah, this probably isn't gonna pass. I'm sure it probably didn't even fly then. Obviously, I mean, I think this is added to the list.
But forget about that. Well, yeah, exactly. But even that, and even given that it's been 30 years, I mean, now to have a movie where a guy like chases these guys to this building and is like firing machine guns just at whatever, just going nuts. And at the end of that sequence, the hotel security is like on his side.
Mm-hmm. Well, and my favorite thing about that sequence, and this is Hector Elizondo, yeah, like he kind of like, I don't even remember where he got the machine gun from, but he's been chasing Rob Morrow and Johnny Depp with a pistol, and he's shooting at him, and of course people do start screaming and reacting because this place is packed. He goes into like the cafe, and then he's a machine gun. He's just like opening fire, I mean, just to get this damn diamond back. Which again, if he wanted the diamond, he could have just killed the old lady. You know, if he's prepared to shoot everyone in a cafe.
Everyone
could have killed them.
And really, what does he think is going to be achieved by murdering everyone at the resort?
But the best,
like, is he really going to get that thing and drive away?
Yeah. Well, actually, that was the funniest thing about the whole sequence to me was at the very end of it, the cops do show up, and like Elizondo and the security guard are like, he stole my diamond. So they're like, all right, you kids, come on, what's going on here? You're going downtown. They're going to arrest Rob.
Yeah.
Never mind. Like. No, like everybody else was a witness to the fact that this was opening fire, and like they're just prepared to like take him at his word, and like so maybe he could have gotten away with it. Actually, you know, just given the nature of these like bumbling idiot cops, you know. Oh man, it was crazy.
That's good.
Crazy.
Good times. Now let me talk about the editing real quick.
Yeah, let's do it.
Now there was one bit that mainly stood out for me, and if I ever feel like going back and watching this again, maybe I will. And just try and piece together exactly what was supposed to happen. Now, I saw a note earlier on about some of the goofs in the movie, quote unquote. And this really wasn't a goof necessarily, but I want to say that it was toward the beginning of the movie. You first meet the security guard, and he comes over and he's kind of hassling Depp and Rob Morrow at the bar.
Uh-huh.
And then they're like, "Oh no, we're guests."
Oh yeah, he's like, "What are you kids doing here? You have to be a guest."
Exactly.
Yeah. It's like, what? Yeah, I don't even know why he came to that conclusion either, by the way, just by looking at him. I mean,
yeah, well, exactly. It really didn't make any sense. But then he was like, okay, you have keys, whatever, and he like walks away. Next scene, and I think it's like, it might even be the very next scene, he's walking inside the hotel, and he clearly has a black eye.
Yes.
Or no, he actually, no, he was outside. Regardless, the
he
next
had
time you
it
see
before,
him, he's got a black eye. Yeah, and it's like you can't miss it. Like it's even in my the terrible version I was watching, he had a black eye, and then about 50 to 60 minutes later, after that scene, he doesn't have a black eye, and he manages to get himself punched in that eye by Andrew Dice Clay.
Yep.
And that's the point where everything started unraveling on me, like Inception style. I was like, what? Like, in which way was this? Is this like, Memento, I guess I should say. But yeah, it's just like all of a sudden everything started coming apart. And I was like, wow, what order was this movie supposed to be in? And would it have been better in that order?
Yeah, when you enter the private resort, time actually, and this was why the only exposition in the movie was that you're there for 4 days. But time is non-linear. It's circular here, Craig. And so you're seeing it all at once. Yeah. That's why when they walk into the one room, there's sumo wrestlers in a circular ring, right?
Oh.
Is this all making sense now?
Well, it is, and it kind of leads me to one of my most pressing questions that I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
Could this all have been a dream?
I would love that so much.
That Gary from Weird Science had.
Oh, God. Yeah, it would fall in line with one of his dreams, yeah.
He would see himself as Johnny Depp probably, and Wyatt as Rob Morrow.
Yeah.
That's one of my pressing questions. It could work.
You may have just cracked the code, yeah.
Maybe.
Well, let's talk about Depp and Mr. Rob Morrow here for just a second. I mean, obviously, very, very early on in their careers, and you had a great quote from Johnny Depp about the whole experience in the Tee-Up episode, which we don't need to repeat. I thought they weren't bad. I thought Johnny Depp...
No, they're good.
I mean, some of the physical stuff that Johnny Depp is doing was pretty funny. I mean, I like how many times... I mean, it's so repetitive about them being in like these little sticky situation vignettes where they got to get out of there, but they can't just come out and say the truth of the situation, even though at times I thought they could have. There's a lot of just like them kind of quietly like pushing each other, trying to get out the door and like, just back and forth and all these things and then quickly sort of changing things. And I thought they were kind of good at that. I mean,
yeah.
I think with like lesser actors at all, like, oh my God, this thing would have been such a chore to get through. because they are kind of likable, even though, like, yeah, you know nothing about them, and they're not doing necessarily likable things at all. And they're
drugging women, not very likable.
Just on the prowl.
Sure.
But yeah, I didn't mind it at all. I thought that was kind of fun. I thought Depp actually disappears for like a section of the third act, it felt like, which was a weird choice to me.
Like it all started kind of center on Rob Morrow or other characters for a while. Yeah.
If you're so inclined, you do see both of their asses, I think, multiple times in this movie.
Yeah.
That's out there. Rob Morrow, I mean, Northern Exposure, love. And I've liked him in other things, Quiz Show, whatever. I felt like there was a weird tick in this. I mean, there was a time actually I wrote down where I was like, this smiling thing he's doing is like borderline
really
psychopathic. Like, because it's, I mean, especially there's that scene where he's like hiding from Hector Elizondo and he jumps under the table. And the waitress like are you okay? And is like under there with him. And they're having a conversation and he just like, he'll say something like one word and then just like get this like smile, which, when you pair that with the Quaaludes, it's creepy. It's a little creepy. They should have cut back on that.
That was something, and I feel like he's always kind of had a weird thing about the smile.
Even now, as an actor?
And you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's fallen off over the
God,
years.
I hope so,
I don't really remember it on Northern Exposure, but he kind of has a weird way of talking when the smile comes on, and in this movie, he really holds that smile. It really made me think more like the editor and the director in the room, like, man, Rob Morrow's got a winning smile. Let's just keep that on the screen as much as possible. Any take you have where he's smiling while talking, well, just put it there. It's a little unsettling, and it kind of makes you wonder, like, what the oh man, of course I can't remember her name right now. What's her name?
Patty?
Dana? No.
Or his girl? Yeah,
Patty.
the waitress
Patty,
is Patty. Yeah, Emily Longstreth.
Kind of makes you wonder.
As actress.
Yeah, Emily Longstreth. Kind of makes you wonder what Patty is so excited about here. But again, much like Weird Science, there's nothing to really see in these guys.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, I don't think he's got a ton to do in these moments. So, it's probably just a young actor, just, that's his default go-to. And maybe they didn't have enough takes in editing or something. I don't know. But I don't know. I don't think it is fine. It's distracting. I mean, I think it's legitimately we both noticed it. Come on.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I'm not going to give him a complete pass on that. One other actor actually I wanted to mention was Michael Bowen. He played the guy that was the just overbearing hard-ass boss of the waitresses. Which I don't understand the character at all. I mean, other than just like, well, we should have one just like legitimate dick in this movie, and he happened to be it.
Sure.
But that guy, I was like, he looks familiar. He was in, he's been in a couple of Tarantino movies, in Jackie Brown, both of the Kill Bill movies. He played Buck in the Kill Bill movies. Yeah. And it says here he was in Magnolia as well, and a couple other things. He's been in a bunch, but I think, certain people will definitely recognize that guy, at least his face. And he did
say, for some reason I kept thinking of him as like either Will Forte's MacGruber.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's got sort of the same haircut.
Who else was it? Well, kind of Red Oaks is Barry.
Yeah.
I started kind of in the slower moments of the movie. I just started aligning the different actors with people from Red Oaks.
He doesn't really get much comedy, though. I mean, he's not, slightly.
He's much harsher.
Yeah, he's really just kind of like not a good guy at all. No. But that said, I like that actor. I think he's cool.
The character is kind of there just to give her a reason to like go for Rob. Mm-hmm. Like, as a woman in a 1985 sex comedy, you have to choose a man. So she's not going to go for that jerk.
Yeah.
So it's got to be Rob, I guess. And that's fine. Now, here's the question I have for you, though. Do either of these guys ever actually get laid?
In the movie, I'm not positive.
I feel like they don't.
I'm not sure they did either. I think it could be implied that Johnny Depp did. Although again, like he
Right.
goes missing for so long in that last act, like,
Yeah,
and then
a lot of
you
stuff could
know
have been going on.
you do get that montage with Rob Morrow and Patty, where they're out on the beach and all this stuff. And
Oh wow, yeah.
Jesus, was not a fan of that.
Hey, at least you get the montage.
Yeah,
You kind of buy their feelings for each other a little bit more.
yeah, but I don't know. I mean, it's just one of these things where you were talking about like the editing. There were moments where I'm like, have 3 days passed? Has 1 day passed? I don't know. Like, I think there was a nighttime at one point, but I can't remember. I had no idea.
I bet if you watch it for it, I bet there's like 5 or 6
I
days
think you're
in that
probably
movie.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. I wish I'd thought to look at that.
Yeah. But I do think Rob Morrow and his lady, if I'm not mistaken, don't they get the freeze frame at the end? And then they actually do the whole like, oh, here's the actor. They show the people and then their credit and then freeze on that and stuff. But I think they I don't know. There are multiple freeze frames at the end of this movie. Continuing our 80s tropes.
You had to pad that time out a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, 81 minutes. That's pretty close there. What else to say about Private Resort? One thing that I do believe could have caused this whole House of Cards to crumble, but would have been a much more logical decision, was if Rob Morrow had just claimed to be housekeeping instead of the barber when Hector Elizondo came into the room.
Yeah.
Because
Absolutely.
I feel like that would have been acceptable and he could have left.
Yes. I mean, obviously it would not have set up a set piece.
Let alone the rest
But
of the
it does
movie.
seem- Yeah. Much like jumping in bed with the woman, which is exactly the one thing you don't want the husband to see ever. Yeah, it just seems like the exact wrong thing to do is say, yes, I'm the barber.
Yep.
And then the next most, and then I really started thinking about it, which is ridiculous. But I really started thinking. So if I was the barber, if I was the guy who said he was the barber here, and I got to fake my way through this, I'm probably just gonna I'll make a bunch of clippy noises behind him.
I'm not actually touching your hair at all.
And I'll be like, I'm done.
Oh man, look at that. Because he even says, I want a haircut that doesn't look like I had a haircut.
Exactly.
He even
I want it
says
to look
that.
just like
I know.
this.
They set it up
That's why-
easy.
Yeah, I thought that's what was going to happen. He was just going to pretend to cut his hair for like a while, and the guy was going to be, "This looks great," but
Nope.
What are you going to do? What are you going to do?
Well, I mean, we don't know anything about Rob Morrow, so again, he could be a serial rapist, and he could just, really be into pretending to be barbers and screwing up haircuts. I don't know.
Man, it's a much darker movie than I think people give it credit
and
for.
it's really open to interpretation.
Very, very open.
I think there's little else to say about Ye Olde Private Resort, Craig.
It doesn't really reward deep thought.
Nope.
But it's still not the worst way to spend 90 minutes.
Not the worst way. It looks like IMDb people are saying 5.2 stars out of 10 for whatever that means. I might go a little lower, but I do think this is one of those movies that you can have fun with. And it's kind of worth seeing because of the flaws in a weird way. And obviously it is fun to see Johnny Depp in something like this.
Oh yeah.
God, you remember how much he changed after? I mean, like after 21 Jump Street, it was just like he was just a different person. It was like suddenly so serious and this like brooding teen idol guy. But that's just not at all on display in this movie. Thank God.
No, it's absolutely true. Yeah, because I guess he was in Nightmare on Elm Street before this. And then this was the next year.
And then he's in
it's
Platoon
funny.
not long after that, which
Platoon,
is crazy. Yeah.
It is really crazy, especially him, because I feel like Rob Morrow's charisma is totally there, and I feel like Johnny Depp's is almost not at all there.
No.
And again, he said he didn't consider himself to be an actor. So
right, and he does in some way play the sort of Anthony Michael Hall role in this movie.
Yeah.
He's sort of like the alpha male of the two dudes.
Right.
And I believed him as a loser in a way,
Sure.
you know. I mean, I think obviously they're aware that the guy is good looking enough that he can pull, you know, a girl like Dana, and there's some interest there from others, but yeah, I mean, he's kind of walking in as if it's like a super bad situation, and that's would certainly seem a stretch today with that guy. But yeah, I don't know. It was believable enough to me.
It was.
Craig, if you want to watch this movie again, and I know you do, it is definitely online, streaming all over the place for rent. I don't think it's available for subscription. Too bad. Weird Science is surprisingly harder to find unless you want to pony up some money, but Showtime has it for free on their service, and I did a 7-day free trial on that and watched it, so that's out there. I would absolutely love for someone to tell me if they've seen Private Lessons and Private School and what those two movies are like. Because, again, it does not seem like there's any connection between the three of these movies whatsoever, other than the fact they have Private in the title. It was the same producer.
Yeah.
And
I think that's it.
Yeah, so, you know, I don't know. Maybe in a perfect world, if you watch this and were wondering, oh, these two guys, who are they? Where are they from? How old are they? Oh, it was explained in the previous two movies. Maybe that would have made sense, but that doesn't appear to be the case either. I wonder if they did the same thing in Private Lessons in Private School. I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Yeah. I don't know. I think this one is pretty easy to tell why Weird Science landed where it did on the charts, and Private Resort kind of happened where it did, although maybe that's not fair. When we watch some of those other movies that were way down there in the $300,000 grossing range, we may think, wow, you know, Private Resort was at least fun. I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, go rewatch Weird Science again. It's a good time.
Indeed. Agreed.
And let's see. Do we know what we're doing next time? I don't think we do we?
Not yet. Not exactly.
Oh,
so it'll be a surprise to you and to us.
Yeah, all the more reason to listen to the next episode. Yeah. Thanks for listening. Come say hello online, and we'll talk to you then.